So, welcome everybody to the OLLI program. We have our workshop is called Near Death and Spiritually Transformative Experiences. And today we have a wonderful guest with us. His name is Dr. Scott Robinson, and he's going to share with us about his near-death experiences. I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you so much, Dr. Scott, for being here with us.
Oh,
Welcome.
thank you for having me here, Reverend Catherine. I'll just give you a brief history of who and what this physical body is. Born in Paterson, New Jersey, going to Long Island University, Southampton College, and everything in between, I grew up on the East Coast. And Paterson's not too far from the New York, New Jersey border, Hudson River, and all that other stuff. I was the son of a pilot, World War II bomber pilot. And my mom used to make my dad's engines. They'll come in handy. My mom and dad's story will be here because my first near-death experience occurred when I was 17 years old. My second near-death experience occurred when I was 35, 36 years old. I grew up in what I thought was a Jewish Orthodox family in New Jersey with family all over the tri-state area. Lo and behold, because of my near-death experience, I would find out, and so would my parents, that we're not who we think we are. Surprise. So I was supposed to go into the military because my father was a military officer and I was going to be a pilot, just like my dad. I got accepted to the academy and was just about to ship off for the academy when my first near-death experience occurred. Jewish kid in a Catholic school. I was given a gift of a 1968 Mercury Montego, two doors, coupe, red interior. And if you remember, the old seats in the old cars were bench seats, not the bucket seats that we have today. Had 325 under the hood, and it was a fast little car, great for a teenager going to the academy and going to use it to pick up girls. So it had the front and the back. It was a cool little car. It could do 100 miles an hour easy in those days when gasoline was still 25 cents a gallon. That day, 3 days after high school graduation, I picked up my friend Lou, who was going to take me to his family's um, cabin at Lake Opatcon, New Jersey, New York border. If any of you, since you live on Long Island, you might know Lake Opatcon. And when I was growing up, there were blue laws. I could get beer on the New Jersey side, but on a Sunday, I couldn't get beer on the New York side. So if you guys remember your blue laws in New York. Well, I got onto Highway 80, Route 80, which comes out of New York City, right out of the GWB, goes west right across New Jersey and into Pennsylvania. But I was going to get on New Jersey's Route 80 and go up to Route 17, go north, and go fishing. I would pick him up at 5 o'clock in the morning, picked up Lou. We went to Catholic school together. And I got on the road. He fell asleep in the seat. And as I was getting on and I saw the sign, next exit downtown Paterson, I had a strange sensation in my body. I looked down. Here I am driving the car. I looked down and I could see through my hands. And I went, if this is death, there's nothing to be afraid of. If any of you know the movie Heaven Can Wait, anybody remember Heaven Can Wait? Remember, he's on a bicycle in this particular episode, not the original movie, which had a different name, but the later movie in the 80s, Heaven Can Wait. He's an athlete playing football. And the angel takes him out of his body before the truck hits him, because at least the angel thought he was going to get killed. He arrives in heaven, and the head, James Mason, says, he's not due to be up here yet. We have to get him a new body. Well, in my case, it's almost as they took me out 23 miles before the actual accident occurred. It would occur somewhere on Route 17 heading up north to that area. The car was hit. The car spun. I came out of my old three-point seatbelt, flew across, hit the dashboard, hit the window, my head, and the little grabber. And the next thing I knew, I briefly woke up 2 seconds underneath the dashboard as they opened the door of the car And the police officer, as I fell out and landed on his foot, said, "He's DOA." And I went out, went above the earth, where I met an angel who said, "Turn around and look at the earth and tell me what you see." I said, "I see lights coming up. I see some are really thick and big like a tree trunk. Some are really thin and individual, like wisps of hair." And he said, "Do you know what those are?" I said, "No." And he said, "Those are prayers. The group ones are the ones with a lot of people praying for the same thing. The thin ones are individual prayers." I said, "Oh, that's nice." He said, "We got to go." And the next thing I know, I was going down a tunnel, almost like sitting in the back seat of my car doing 100 miles an hour. Everything was blurred, just going right past me. I arrive on the other side, what we call the gates of heaven, and there's my grandfather, who I'm named for. He died 2 years before my birth. And I recognized pictures. I had never seen him, of course, because he had died before I was born. And he said, "You don't belong here. You have to go back. You haven't fulfilled your purpose and missions in life." He said, "Oh, but before you go back, I have someone for you to meet." And he took me into a room with three beings. He left. I don't know what happened to my grandfather, but he left, and I was in the room, and there were two large angels looking at me, and there was another being my height, wavy brown hair, facing the angels. And the being turned around and I went, "Are you the being everybody calls Jesus?" Now remember, I'm a Jewish kid going to Catholic school, and I went like that. So I didn't know who he was. And then when he looked at me and he smiled, I went, "Ah, I know it. That's him." Behind him was Michael the Archangel, which was the biggest angel I'd ever seen. And next to Michael was an unnamed angel, slightly smaller than Michael. And as Jesus turned around to me, he said, "Because of your heritage, I will call you the little Prince of Peace, and you can call me Big Brother. My name in Hebrew is Shalom Gershon Ben Zvi, which in essence is like the little Prince of Peace, but it actually means peaceful messenger, son of the sovereign." Long story short, I was bummed because Jesus says to me, "You don't belong here. You got to go back. You have to fulfill your purpose and missions in life," just like my grandfather said. When the third being to be named later turns to me and said, "When you meet me in the future, my body is called one thing, but that's not who I am. You will learn a simple technique to heal yourself and share that with other people." At which point, Jesus again says, "You have to go now." And I went, "Ah, shoot." And I took my right fist, hit my left palm, and got drawn into my body. Now, the same cop who pronounced me DOA calls my parents in the meantime as he puts my body into the morgue area. He calls my parents and says, "Mrs. Robinson, please come identify your son's body." He did not say he was dead. He just said, "Please come identify his body." So my mom and dad at 5 o'clock in the morning get up. By the time they get to the morgue, it is now 2 hours later. When they arrive at the morgue door, they open the door and there's no one there at the front door, at the front desk. And the hallway lights are dark. And they see someone down the end of the corridor pushing a body covered up on a metal gurney going into the refrigeration unit. And as they walk down to ask, "Where's my son's body?" he disappears. This person pushing the gurney just vanishes. And mom and dad say, "How's that possible? We both saw him just a second ago and he just disappeared." Well, there was a door to the left and the light was out. So they decided, well, maybe he moved so quickly we didn't see him. So they come to this body as it's being wheeled into the refrigeration unit and they pull the sheet off. Well, it's me. And I sit up. I say, "Mom, Dad, I met God. I met Grandpa." And they said, "Son, you had a head injury. Come with us." And as I went to get off this metal gurney, which when they push it into the refrigeration unit, the wheels roll up and it slides into this icebox. And it's a good thing they hadn't slid me in there because I don't know what would have happened if I had woken up with the door closed. Probably would have freaked out. But as it was, good thing the light was out because I had a really bad headache. I went, "Oh, mom, dad, I got a headache. I don't feel so good." So mom and dad grabbed an elbow each, helped me pop off this metal gurney, and they walked me hand in hand down the corridor, out the double doors from the morgue, and into the back seat of my dad's Volkswagen. Dad sold Volkswagens. He was the manager of Jerome Volkswagen in the Bronx. I laid down because I was spinning like a top and I was about ready to vomit. And they took me home. The next day, they drove me to Montefiore Hospital in the Bronx, where I met with my doctor. They took an MRI. Oh, they didn't have MRIs yet. They took my CT and they took EKG and a whole bunch of other tests, EEG. And they said, "Scott, you've had what we call a near-death experience. At least that's what it's being called by this guy named, um, what's the name of our guy that named NDEs?
Oh,
Raymond Moody. Raymond
Raymond,
Moody. All
yeah.
right. Actually, it was his boss that named him. So he said, your DMT levels are off the charts. Does anybody know what a DMT level is? Dimethyltryptamine. It is a brain hallucinogen, and it is what is produced by the pineal gland, and it is what the National Institutes of Health indicates is a meaning or definition for a true near-death experience. You must show that your dimethyltryptamine levels are over the 20% mark above normal. And the very interesting thing is dimethyltryptamine in a person with a true near-death experience never goes back to normal. It will always stay high. My dimethyltryptamine levels are 22% higher than the average person. And they've stayed that way ever since my first near-death experience.
And that has to do with the pineal gland, you said.
Has to do with your pineal gland, which is your ability to connect with the source of all that is, what and whoever you call the creator, the big guy, the big gal, it, whatever it is.
Yeah. Same
And
for people that have spiritual awakenings too. Same
yes,
thing happens. The pineal gland opens up. And
right. And
yeah.
it will change. The thing is, though, with a person with a true NDE, their levels are usually more than 22%. That's how they differentiate at the National Institutes of Health.
Hmm.
So, my doctor, who I would get to know, Dr. Barry Ludwig, wasn't actually supposed to be my doctor that day, but he knew everything about near-death experiences because Moody's book is just out, and he happened to be reading it. He would eventually go to Santa Monica, California, where I would go, and he worked in Santa Monica Hospital. So I also would eventually go out there after I became a doctor. Long story short, doctor told me I had to stay and not do my normal things. And he would help me transfer from Long Island University, where I had to drive a car, to Montclair State, where I wouldn't need the car. And this way he could observe me and see how things were going. So I transferred over to Montclair State in New Jersey, which had a great view of New York City up on the hill. And I would spend a lot of time there. Very interesting thing. I wasn't a stupid kid at all. I was kind of smart. My IQ before the accident was 138. After the near-death experience, within a year, my IQ would jump to 149. And the only thing they could figure out was that this was something to do with the pineal gland. Now, before my near-death experience, my first near-death experience, I did have a few gifts. From the age 5 to age 12, I had the ability to predict when someone was going to die. And it used to freak out my grandmother. She used to say, "This kid's weird." And if you read the third definition of weird, I am weird. It means spiritually unique and different. That's the actual third definition of weird. My grandmother used to say also, "This kid scares me." I used to be able to predict things. Now, this was before the near-death experience, which was age 17. I also had the ability before the near-death experience to be able to predict who was going to win a football game and by what score. So it made me very popular in school, but the one caveat was I couldn't do any of the betting. My friends would take my numbers that I tell them about who was going to win, and they'd go bet. and they'd make money. But lo and behold, they never gave anything to me or said thank you even. I just was like, hey, you're not even saying thank you? So I stopped doing that. The whole thing with the dying thing was I could draw a person's face, and within 3 days they were dead. And my family got freaked out. And they would ask me, please don't draw anybody from this point forward. I remember on Yom Kippur Day, I'm 13 years old, and a phone rings, which in a Jewish family, that's unheard of. We don't answer the phones when you're in the Orthodox anyway on a Sabbath, but on Yom Kippur, you definitely know. But that day, I had the sensation, Mom, Dad, you better go pick up the phone. Somebody just died. That's what I told them. So Dad picked up the phone and found out his boss's father had dropped dead of a heart attack. So those were my gifts before the near-death experience. After the near-death experience, my IQ went up and suddenly I could read a book without actually reading the book. I just seemed to absorb it. And I would memorize everything. I had the ability to read and memorize everything. It was almost like a didactic memory. Not complete, but almost, since the near-death experience. And I was able to tell people what was going to happen to them. I would be able to tell people what I saw, what was going to happen, what happened to them, why they were having problems. And I began to realize I was using my body as a tool. I could feel the other person. And if it got into a room with too many people, it overwhelmed me. This was like when I was brand new, just off the shelf for my first near-death experience. I would go on and I would become a doctor 7 times over. I also would go to Israel, worked an internship in the middle of combat between the Israelis and the Syrians in 1983. And then I would return to Chicago where I was in school becoming a doctor. I have many doctors. And I would work the emergency room for a Catholic hospital near Lombard, Illinois, where I would do my internship in the emergency room. And I remember this is actually before my second near-death experience. I began to notice strange things would occur. On my first night on the job in the emergency room, a person came in DOA, and the other doctors didn't want to do the chest compressions. So I did. I did the chest compressions, and suddenly the entire room changed. It went from being its normal chaotic emergency room to being very quiet. The room lit up, the most beautiful white light. And as I'm pumping on this guy's chest, he appears in front of me. And he says, "You're the only one that helped me during this entire episode. The ambulance crew didn't do anything for me." And I was at peace, and I heard him as clear as day. And then the doctor, the MD who was in charge, said, "I'm calling it." He marked the time of death and he said, "Stop doing the compressions." I did. And the man in front of me said, "Bye bye," and vanished. The light in the room disappeared, went back to the normal ambient light. And the MD that was in charge said, "Gee, as a rookie, you do much better than my regular MDs that's in this group." See, in Illinois, I had multiple degrees back then as also. I was a chiropractor and a medical examiner, and I went to court. After this particular thing, I would come back to California where my family was, and I'd become a court doctor for the state of California Division of Workers' Compensation. I would get my doctorate of divinity after my next near-death experience, become a licensed religious counselor, become a doctor of chiropathy because I'm commissioned by the Religious Counseling of Healing, the United States and North America, US and Canada. And I would do all sorts of different things. I would actually be called on cases to take a look at somebody and tell them who was guilty and who was innocent and what was the problem. The only difficulty up until 2023 is I didn't like the kind of cases they were sending me on. Mostly it was child molestation cases and murder cases, and I didn't like the energy. And all I had to do was look at someone's face and I could tell them if they were guilty or innocent because I'm empathic since the second near-death experience. And I could tell a person whether they were telling the truth or not because I could feel them. And that's actually what you're supposed to use your body for, to feel your surroundings, your world, and your reality. We live in a dichotomous world between good and evil. And the Creator gave this world to the evil in the third dimension for the purpose of teaching us. They have free reign to do anything they want on humanity. Our objective, master this reality, endure, persevere, and overcome it. You heard it. Master this reality, endure, persevere, and overcome it. You're not here to suffer, but you may be here to struggle, like a butterfly pushes its way out of a cocoon. If you cut that cocoon, you'll kill the butterfly. So for us to grow spiritually, we must have a little bit of struggle, not suffering. And if you're suffering, then you're not experiencing what you really need to be doing. You should always remain calm. This is a schooling planet. And how I know that is my second near-death experience. As a medical examiner in the state of California, I used to fly around for court cases, and I was a pilot. I didn't get a chance to be a pilot in the military like I was supposed to, so I went and became a private pilot. And I flew a Beech Sierra C-24R, retractable landing gear, third model. Beech Sierra is what's also known as a baby Bonanza, if anybody knows what Beechcraft airplanes are like. A Bonanza is their bigger plane. And mine was a 210 horsepower engine with retractable landing gear. And I was practicing touch and goes in regards to going from Long Beach, California, up to Sacramento to chase down a person that the court wanted me to find, do an exam at midnight, and then fly back to the court, which was in Benicia, California, and present my findings the next day. Then I was going to fly home, go back. Hey, this was great. I got to be paid to fly anywhere I needed to go in California, Arizona, Nevada, and they were going to fly me to Hawaii. And I got to fly my own plane and do it. So this was fun for me. On that practice day in December in that year, it was cold and it was wet. And I was up on Lake Arrowhead, which is almost 8,000 feet. It's a little bit less than that. It's up in the San Bernardino mountain range. And my co-pilot was Lisa, my training. She would be my trainer. She trained me on all the bigger planes and the retractable stuff and multi-engine ratings and stuff like that. So anytime I needed to practice, which was 2 hours for every hour I flew, I would practice 2 hours. So she was with me that day and practicing touch and goes on a wet, rainy, or slippery surface, became off the runway, went up to 12,000 feet, and suddenly I felt strange. The same kind of strange sensation I had when I was in my car when I was 17 years old. And suddenly, though, I slumped over the yoke. Now, a yoke is like a steering wheel, but it's only half of a steering wheel. And it goes like this, and in and out, around. And I slumped over that. And Lisa pushed the plane down to below 8,000 feet, where I regained consciousness. She said, enough's enough for today. And we flew back to Long Beach. Now, as part of the medical examiner's corps there in Long Beach, I had to go for a medical exam anyway, because every private pilot has to sit an exam, physical and otherwise, every year. I was due one. And since I was working for the medical examiner's office, I figured I'll just run in and see if they can take some blood work and see what's going on. As I got in the car, still feeling kind of dizzy, and since I worked with the police department, a cop came over and stopped me and said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, I'm not feeling so good. I have to get to the medical examiner's office." He said, "Follow me." And I followed him. He said, "I got to go back on." He was a California Highway Patrol officer. "I got to go back onto the highway, but this is as far as I can go." And I was only a block or two over to the medical examiner's office. Got in, had my blood work done, and the man that was in charge of my exam said, "We don't like what we see. I'm sending you to USC Medical Center at General Hospital in Los Angeles." If any of you know the soap opera General Hospital, anybody know the General Hospital? All right, that was filmed there. That's the opening credits. That big gate, it's almost always open, but every now and then they close it. I had to go back in onto that property, go to the Department of Nephrology, where I knew two of the doctors, and they would put me under anesthesia, and they would come back. Long story short, they said, "We don't like what we're finding. You better go home and prepare your records because we don't think you're going to make it more than 9 months." All right. The other thing that happened during this exam, they gave me an overdose of medication, stopped my heart. And does anybody remember the names of the medications that was given to Michael Jackson when he overdosed and died? All right. They gave me that same med, and I would come out of my body. Only this time it wasn't all the way back home. It was a veridical near-death experience. How many of you know the term veridical near-death experience other than Reverend Kathy? It means that you don't go all the way home. You actually come out of your body and float above the operating room, and you'll see things that go on, and you'll be aware of things. Today, they put a quarter or a dime or something up in the corners. So if you really claim that you were out of your body, you get to tell them what you found and saw. On my particular episode, I came out of my body, floated above, saw that the doctor and the nurse were having an affair. They're wearing the same identical kinds of shoes, and they were married to other people. And they were talking about their affair over the top of me, not realizing that I heard and saw everything. Then I asked the angel that was next to me, floating up there, I said, "My body's a mess. Can I go home now?" Meaning heaven. And he said, "No, you still have to fulfill your purpose and missions in life." I said, "Would you kindly remind me, because it's 18 years later, could you kindly remind me what my mission and purpose in life is?" And he said, "Sure. You will learn a simple technique to heal yourself and share that with other people." I went, "Oh, thanks." I would come back, tell the doctor and nurse what I saw. The nurse would break off the relationship with the doctor. The doctor was transferred to another division for doing surgery there at USC Medical Center. The doctor said, "Go home. You don't have long to live." I said, "I do not accept your diagnosis nor your prognosis, and I'm going to Mexico to the Gerson Institute and to Hulda Clark, Cure for All Diseases, and I've heard of other people receiving cures, and I'm going to go there. If I do it and I fail, my life, my body. If I don't, I'll see you in 3 months." Guess what? I came back from Mexico in 3 months. And when I did, they did a re-exam. And they said, "We can't find anything wrong. We don't know. We must have made a mistake." And I said, "You do realize you're talking to a former medical examiner? I go to court for a living." The doctor shut up. My file disappeared. One doctor died. The other one retired. And the third doctor said, "You can't heal from this diagnosis without our medicine. So we must have made a mistake." I wanted to punch him, but he was the tallest doctor I had ever met. At 7 foot 2 inches tall, he was the center for the basketball for the university in the South, Louisiana State, I think it was. Well, I forget what it was. No, it was Tulane, Tulane University. And he went on to become a medical doctor. And he worked that division, and he didn't believe in miracles. He didn't believe in anything other than his medicine and what he was practicing. And like I said, I wanted to punch him, but I couldn't. I couldn't reach past his belly button because I'm only 5'8". I went out, had to do some prayers. From that point on, I never went back to being the normal doctor. I gave up most of my licenses, moved on to different things, and I started to investigate the spiritual aspects when I was introduced to the Commission on Religious Counseling and Healing. One thing you need to know, something that I was trained both from the other side and this side, religion requires spirituality to exist, but spirituality does not require any religion to operate. Well, how did my book, There Are No Lines in Heaven, get its name? While I was working for the Gerson Institute in Mexico, they referred me a client by the name of Mr. Brown. And Mr. Brown was sent home and he wanted to do the diet, which was Gerson Institute was mostly vegetarian, a lot of potatoes, greens, you made juices, you had coffee enemas, all those types of things. And one thing I knew about Mr. Brown, he was devoutly Christian. I said, I'm Jewish, Messianic Jewish, as a matter of fact. I said, why did you want to hire me? And he said, Dr. Robinson, I heard about your story in meeting Jesus. Well, I said, number one, I'm related to the guy. And number two, I died. I came over. He said, but I'm really devout and I wanted to meet him and you did. And he said, I want to learn more. I said, okay. He said, I was told by my sect of Christianity that only Christians went to heaven or that my sect of Christianity would go to heaven or would be first in line. I said, that's funny. I've been over there twice. I said, there's everybody up there. He said, that's what I want to find out because that's not what I was told. So Mr. Brown would have a near-death experience down the road just about a year later. And on that day, he would come back and he would call me on the phone. And he said, you know, Dr. Robinson, I was up there. I met Jews and Christians and Buddhists and Hindus and Muslims and even beings who weren't even from this planet. This was amazing. And I said, I told you. Well, Mr. Brown would eventually die, only this time he wouldn't come back. And on the day of his death, an angel appeared in the room for me because I can smell angels. I can see them. I can smell them. I know when a good guy's there and a bad guy's there. And on that day, an angel appeared in front of me and said, there are no lines in heaven when you reach the pearly gates. No Christians in the center, Jews to the left, or Muslims to the right, for you are all children of God and you are all welcome. As the angel went on to laugh, how silly human beings are about this whole thing about being a human being. And that's how the book got its name. There are no lines in heaven. Could have also gotten the name, there's no competition in heaven either, because there is no competition. You're always there at the right time for the right person, for the right things, for anything. And as a result, I came back, never looked back as into the old way of doing things, and went to start to use my healing gifts. See, not only do I teach people how to do this thing called Einstellen, Einstellen. Einstellen means tuning into the source, asking for help and healing. And so that's what I teach free of charge every 2 weeks on a Sunday afternoon, 1:15 Eastern Time. Now, I see people one-on-one for clients. I don't call them patients anymore. They're God's patients. They're my client members because I'm a private membership association, Theocentric Eleemosynary Spiritual Charity of One, which is a 508c1a charity, different than a 501. 501 is something that's public. I'm a 508 that's private. And as a result, I run and operate off of a trust. And I do things for the reasons that the guy upstairs, the big guy, big gal, it tells me I need to do this, that, and the other thing. I go and work with whoever they tell me to. Now, because I have my own church called Nova Tierra at Nova Celestia, means new earth and new heaven, I work with people on a donation basis, but I have a request that I always ask for things. And I remember Reverend Catherine asked me, am I retired? I said, no, I'm busier now than I used to be. I travel all over the place. I have clients up in Friday Harbor, Washington, Seattle, Kirkland, Bellevue, where they're going to have the IANS conference this summer. I work with people in Portland, San Francisco, Santa Barbara. It's one of the first IANS groups I ever worked with was in Santa Barbara. And I work with Peter Wright and Barbara Bartolome. And I've known Barbara for probably more than 15, 20 years. And I worked in San Diego because I used to live there. And the IANS there, the young woman that was in charge passed away. Somebody else took it over and they moved it up to, I think it was either Oceanside or Carlsbad. I've worked with IANS, Diane. I think of her as Tutti Flutie out of Chicago. And this summer, I will be making the rounds in person to Columbia, Maryland, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Syracuse, New York, and hopefully working with Tina and Bethany. I'll be in Connecticut and Rhode Island. I think his name is Greg Riggs. I might be wrong, but they wanted me to come and make the rounds there. I also will be seeing clients up in the state of Maine at Camp Etna, which is a spiritualist camp. And because I work with a spiritualist camp down here in Florida, where I work with people, it's called Casadega. But
Mhm.
for instance, next week I'll be traveling to Cape Canaveral, and that's Space Coast INs with Deb Davis. Reverend Catherine, do you know Deb Davis?
No, I have not heard of her.
All right. And I just came back from doing a talk at Fort Myers INs, and I travel. I do a lot of traveling locally and wherever they want me to do talks. I've done talks for North Carolina State Central and other universities in California. And the biggest thing, I'm here to teach people that the world is not what they think it is. It is a grand illusion created for our own benefit. It is a schooling planet where we learn to differentiate between good from evil. And we're not here to be punished. This is not a slave planet. This is the
Mhm.
schooling planet of the highest caliber in the worst neighborhood in the solar system, galaxy, and universe. Why? Because we're here to learn what other beings can't. Other beings may live a lot longer than humans, but humans have the ability to grow at such a spiritual level so fast that even when we only live to be 80 to 120 years old, our spiritual growth is unlike anywhere else in the galaxy or universe. Well,
Wow.
today, a third of my clients have been written off by the medical field, like I was, and left for dead. And the one thing I don't like is when they do that.
Mm.
That's when God comes to me and says, touch not my child. What does that mean? It means I can't stop them from dying. They're going to go home. As far as the angels are concerned, because I talked to them, they believe this is death, this reality. That's
Right.
life.
That's true. I've
Yes.
heard that before from Sylvia Brown. She says, "We're not dead." She,
No.
she says,
We're
"They say, the spirit world says, we're not dead. You guys are the dead."
right.
That's
And they said angels do fear to tread here because this is a tough place. It's
yeah,
the toughest place you can go. But
yeah.
you also happen to have the ability to be the bravest, most courageous child of God that there is.
Hmm.
Your job, wake up and smell the divine roses. Your job, master this reality, endure, persevere, and overcome. And by the way, the angels, the good guys stand in front of you, mine, my God voice, 2 feet in front, slightly to the left, and slightly down. It's always where I hear God's voice. Angels smell like the most beautiful fragrance. The closest thing I can explain it, it's like dragon's blood. Anybody ever smell the fragrance of dragon's blood incense?
No, I haven't.
Harvey, ever smell incense called dragon's blood? No. Christine, any smell dragon's blood? I can't quite see your face there. It's like so tiny. All right, yes, okay. So, Reverend Catherine, have you ever smelled dragon's blood?
No, I haven't.
Go to Walmart and you can buy dragon's blood. It's not the most expensive version. That's $1 a box. You get the really expensive version. It's really intense. That's what an angel smells like, mixed with a little strawberries and lemon blossoms. If anybody, I grew up near some lemon blossom trees, so it's the most beautiful fragrance in April when the lemon blossoms start to come out. As a matter of fact, the more sour the fruit, the more beautiful the fragrance of the lemons or grapefruit. Most delicious smelling fragrance. Well, that's what an angel, a good guy angel smells like. Bad guy angels stink like ashtrays. Absolutely repugnant. The other thing is, the good guys have white light. Sometimes that's all I see is white light. And you'll feel them before you see them. The bad guys, they look like shadows on a wall where there is no light at all. There shouldn't be a shadow. And you'll feel cold in the back. Evil always comes from the back behind you, blindside you. Good guys coming from in front of you. Evil, cowardice. Good guys, right there. Good guys speak 5 or 6 words. An angel that comes to talk to me, 5 or 6 words. It's always quiet and calm. Bad guys, chatterboxes. Blah, 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 blah. 25 words to get one word out that means anything. Plus, they'll mix good with bad. That's what the evil does. Good guys, Just a few words, and you have to feel it. You have to use your body as the tool it was meant to be. Your body is a tool. It's a gift from the creator. Your job, use it appropriately. Don't abuse it. Two things they taught me. Number one, if you have your druthers or choice, never commit suicide. Only 2% of all suicides, just like 2% of the near-death experiences, you have to choose a suicide before you come down to this world to have it pre-approved, just like a near-death experience. You already had it pre-approved before you came down here. Not everybody can have a near-death experience. It has to have been pre-approved before you arrived on planet Earth. So if only 2% is pre-approved, what about the other 98%? Well, your objective, use prayer to get them back out of it so they can go back home. But here's the other thing. Let's say a person committed suicide when they're 30, but they were supposed to have lived till they're 58. They have to sit in limbo here on this planet or in the moon, and they'll stay here till they're 58, of which time then they'll go home. But then they have to recycle and do this entire life over again. Question. Have you had that much fun that you want to repeat this lesson over again? Not me. So those people who commit suicide and it's pre-approved, there's a reason because their death will change someone else's life. The same as everybody's death will give a gift to the people who are left behind. Okay?
Wow.
Because almost all near-deathers are unafraid of death, I worked as a cadaver lab person. I worked around dead people. They paid me quite well. And it's an important thing. And also to help somebody cross over, like a hospice, an important thing. It's considered a mitzvah or a blessing to help somebody cross over to the other side. And you want them protected. My life's been a very interesting experience over the last 27 years since the second near-death experience, and it only keeps getting better. I see things now the way they're meant to see, as if I were to step back from this reality. There are people who are in the game of life, and they're the ones in a parade going down the street. Then there's the people observing and cheering them on, and they're in the grandstands. And then people like myself, and now yourselves, have to step back further. We cannot judge anyone or anything. We must step back and remember who we are and look at it from a perspective of what were they showing us at the time before we jumped in our bodies and came to this reality. We have many lessons to learn and many things. This is the 5 things that the other side teaches me you need to know. Number 1, 99.9% of all humanity is in a constant state of fear. 99.9% doesn't leave a lot of room for a lot of people. If people stop being afraid, evil can't get in the door. You have to stop being afraid. Sort of like if people remember the old Star Trek and you had Spock and he was a Vulcan, right? He was emotionless. You have to learn to be able to calm your emotions so evil can't get in. Second thing that they teach me from the other side, most people are in a constant state of overwhelm. Anybody in the audience ever feel overwhelmed? Anybody? Couple? All right. Number 3, people doubt their divinity because you must have faith in the Creator, have trust that there's a being stronger than us, like a Jesus or a Michael or someone else, Archangel, who's stronger than us and can help us remind us who we are. And then you must believe in your own divinity and your body's ability to heal. Illness was never meant to be part of the human body. But when humans decided that they cut themselves off from the Creator, this became part of a reality over the last 9,000 years. And it had to be brought back. Everything we do is a learning experience, not only for ourselves, but it's a learning experience for all humanity. We come from the source of all that is, we return to the source of all that is. Everything we do here is in a group setting, even if you don't know, just by being here, it is going to help all of humanity. One of the common questions I'm asked is, what's my mission and purpose in life, Dr. Robinson? And actually, that's quite simple because it always involves helping other people. Besides your mission and purpose in life, and knowing that you are not here to suffer, that you shouldn't, if you can, not commit suicide, that just your part of your being is going to change your reality and the reality of all others that come to this illusion in the third dimension. Our objective when we teach Einstein on Sundays is to help us raise our energy levels above that which was the Shorman frequencies, which are 7.83, which is Mother Earth's frequency, and help her raise herself up. She's already over 100 right now, to the point where her frequency is bringing in the fifth dimension, no longer the third dimension. Third dimension has say in this world. Fifth dimension, the creator has say in that world. We want to be able to bring humanity up 2 levels above. Very important so that we can master this reality, live much longer lives, and be able to work together for the betterment of everybody and everything. Because now, once you help humanity on this planet raise up, now the objective is to help other people, other dimensions, so they too can get to the next level. Have any of you remember a man's name by the name of Robert Monroe? Reverend Catherine knows. Robert Monroe in 1959 was a vice president manager of CBS Studios in New York. In that year, he had an out-of-body experience and claimed that he came back and could witness and identify 100 different levels or dimensions that he was aware of. He didn't know if there was any more. He couldn't count anymore. When he came back, he began to teach a program that we are not our bodies and we are not this thing called physical matter. In 1972, he was helped by his first clients, the Central Intelligence Agency, to open up a clinic in Virginia, just 2 miles from his major clients. Whether or not he knew they were CIA at the time, they were teaching their spies, their spooks, how to deal with pain and how to get out of pain since they weren't their body, how to eliminate pain easily. So it's one of the things that I teach people is this thing called pushing faint matter, how to remove negative energy or pain from your body. And the funny thing is, once you learn to do this, you stop being afraid of pain. Because the thing is not so much the pain, it's the fear of pain that actually manipulates people into doing things or not doing things. So I teach prayer, this thing called Einstein, pushing faint matter, negative energy out of your body so you can heal. I remove emotions that don't serve anybody, like the ones we talked about, because the number one biggest one, besides fear, people don't know how to forgive. And if you can forgive another person, he said, the angel said, this is the reason we have wars. You guys can't forgive each other. Guess who the hardest person is to forgive? Anybody want to take a guess?
Good.
Anybody other than Reverend Chapel? Chapel?
Yourself? Go.
There we go.
Exactly.
Oh,
You are the most difficult person to forgive, but I can teach somebody how to forgive themselves in 60 seconds. Besides forgiveness or lack thereof, frustration. Anybody in this crowd ever get frustrated? Yeah, Harvey. The biggest thing is once you learn to master this and those 5 emotions, evil can't mess with you. The next thing is I eliminate emotions that don't serve through tapping techniques. There's got to be 8 or 10 different tapping techniques. But like me, I don't like one or the other. So I found the best things from 8 different tapping techniques and created my own version of it because I have to do a lot of it online, not necessarily in person. Long story short, you just heard about a lot of different things. The book is called There Are No Lines in Heaven. It's the name of my website. You're all welcome to join us on any given Sunday. One of the Sundays is this one coming up, the 15th of February, but I
What
hold them
time?
every 2 weeks. And I
What time?
teach this technique.
What time are those classes?
It's 1:15 Eastern time, and I am pretty much the medical examiner part of me comes out, and I like to start at 1:15. So you want
Okay.
to start early. What you'll do is you'll email me either through the website, There Are No Lines in Heaven, or you can email me at healer, HEALER, the number two, the letter B as in boy, sure, SURE. So healer to be sure at gmail.com. You can email me there and said, hey, I heard you talk at the OLLI program in Long Island. Please, I'd like to be on the list. Please invite me to come to learn how to do this free of charge. That's never charged for because the angel that showed me how to do this said one caveat was I could not charge for it. So I said, okay, it's not me doing it. It's God doing it, whatever you call God.
Wow.
And then we go from there. At 2 o'clock, I have people coming from all over the world, 25 countries and 25 states that'll show up. I never know who's going to show up on any given day. And then we do group Einstein, how to create miraculous astonishments to move the energy of the creator to make, quote, miracles happen. And that was the other thing the angels told me. Miracles are not so much miracles as they are a natural thing, but humans have forgotten that they exist. So I call them miraculous astonishments. That's what the angels call them, astonishments. And you can learn how to do this for yourself. So, Reverend Catherine knew because I wrote to her and she heard my story and she said, do you want to share this? And I said, sure. So, hopefully, it met your qualifications.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Wow, what a wealth of knowledge and information and wisdom that you just shared with us. So many. I do have some questions, if you don't mind, before I open it up for others for
Sure,
questions. Okay, so there were three beings that you met in your first NDE, and your first NDE happened when you were 17, correct?
correct,
And you had an experience where you had a precog, like where you were pre-aware that something was going to happen, right?
correct.
That was like 23 miles
Miles before it actually happened.
happen. Okay.
It was
And-
actually written in the police report that I had the accident didn't occur from 23 miles. That's how I get that number.
yeah.
Yeah,
Wow, very, very cool. All right. And then I met someone last night actually that had a similar thing happen to her before her NDE experience. Very interesting. And then the other thing was I was wondering, you said there were three beings that you met. One was Jesus, one was Archangel Michael, and then who was the third being?
the third one, he said to me, you'll know me from my earth form, but that's not who I am. They called this man, well, this angel. He said, in my earth form, they called me Gruning,
Oh, okay.
Groening.
Yes, I
But he
know.
said, when you meet me, that's not who I am. And it was believed in this life, his name was Bruno Gruning in German.
Right.
But in his angelic being, we believe Bruno to be Archangel Raphael.
Oh, that makes sense.
But
Yeah,
because the angel Raphael is the angel of healing.
that's right.
Now, you either like Bruno or you don't like Bruno. There was no in between. But I knew about Bruno because I met him on the other side. But he
Yeah,
said, when you meet me on earth, that's not who I am.
very,
And it is the one other thing I've learned. Archangels take turns coming to earth to help humanity. They are
mhm,
our teachers. They are here to remind us. Thing is, they are as much human in their earthly terminology as we are in the same illusion.
right.
Their objective is very specific. Near death experience people, same thing. We come back, and if we choose to take on the gifts we've got, we're very specific
Mhm.
and driven.
Yeah.
I do Einstein anywhere between 2 to 6 times a day because every one of my client members learns how to do Einstein with me.
Wow.
Why? It's what saved my life when they wrote me off and left me for dead. Do
Wow.
you have to believe? No. Is it for everybody? Yes, but is it really for everybody? No. Not everybody's going to learn this technique. No, it's not everybody who wants to do this. And especially at the very beginning, it may take 2 hours to go through the practice because it's time consuming and you have to do it at least twice a day to make it work. And it's usually 15 minutes first thing in the morning, last thing at night. Most people don't have the patience for it.
Mm.
This is the other thing they taught me. Have patience with the C, Patience, which means wait, rather than be the patient with the T, Patient, which means you got to go to the doctor. Stop going to the doctor. Use God as the greatest physician, and there is no incurable. Only people can't believe in their ability to heal, or just wait. That's the biggest thing for them telling me for 25 years. Wait, just wait. So you're on divine timing. And what was the third question?
Okay, the third question was, well, you had abilities as a kid, right? You
Yes.
had these abilities, but then
Part of
after,
it was because my mom was born on Halloween and she was already gifted when I was born. So I
okay,
picked
so
I
there's
picked
a
up some of these.
yeah, there's a history there. And then the other thing was, you became your IQ also expanded along with
11 points, which kind of was like, whoa.
yeah, yeah. And you had your DMT measured. Like in other words, is there blood work that you can
There's
do?
blood work. It's called dimethyltryptamine.
Okay.
There's other methods. I use a thing called a remote spooky, and this remote spooky will actually differentially diagnose with your DNA if you've had what the NIH or the National Institutes of Health calls a true near-death experience. It
Okay.
will show, whereas an out-of-body experience, within 24 hours, it begins to change. And
Mhm.
an NDE, a true NDE,
Mhm.
even shared near-death experiences have changes, but a true NDE, your dimethyltryptamine will never go back to a zero. It'll always stay 22% higher
Wow.
or more than that, could be more than that.
Mm.
And very interesting for people's pineal glands, many people, Anglos, this gets calcified very easily because of fluorine and chlorine in the water. People of color, guess what? Their pineal gland is got more melatonin in it, or melanin in it, not melatonin, melanin in it. And as a result, folks of color have higher levels of DMT. And you'll notice, because I have a black side of the family, they're really spiritual in Africa, really spiritual. The darker your color, the more melanin, the higher levels of DMT.
Wow. That's
Like the Chinese side of the family is not as dark, the Hispanic side of the family is not as dark, but they have higher levels than the Anglos because the DMT levels are lower because your pineal is activated by sunlight. And where do most Anglos come from? Mostly Northern Europe,
right.
whereas other folks come with an area of more sunlight. So very interesting. And this comes from the National Institutes of Health. You can read about it.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure I ask all my questions. Then I'm going to open it up. Does anybody have any questions? Just raise your hand and we'll bring you in.
Rabbi Stephen, I emailed you.
All
Yeah.
right.
You
Mary,
did?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Oh, he disappeared. Where'd he go?
I'm right here.
Oh, it disappeared off my screen. You're on the IANS list, so I sent you an email.
Okay. Can you send it again?
I guess so.
Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
so I just wanted to mention I've written a book about signs and I'm in the process of writing another one by getting people to tell me about their experiences. Have you had signs from people in the next world?
You call them signs. I don't call them that.
Okay.
So I get talked to from people from the other side all the time. They love to wake me up between 3 and 5 in the morning. One of my nieces, Orthodox Jewish girl from Chicago, grew up in a Catholic family. And she said at age 8, I am not Catholic to her parents. Hispanic, they came through the time of the conversos. They came through Mexico, to New Mexico, Arizona, and into California. We met her when she converted to Orthodox Judaism, and she lives in Chicago. And I was asked to pray for her aunt who was in Texas at the time and nearing the end of her life, was diagnosed with cancer. So I prayed for her. And then one day, 3 days later, an angel appeared in the room, of which my mom even smelled the angel. And I said, Mom, there's an angel in the room, and they got a message for me. And she said, What are they? Because she could smell the fragrance. And the angel said, I have somebody that I'm taking home, and she has a question for you. Would you please listen to her and take care of it? And that happened to be Liliana's aunt. And she said, Please tell my family I'm really feeling good. I'm out of pain, but I would like you to do one other thing for me. Please pray for my husband because he was so worried about me before my death that he was drinking way too much, and I'm concerned because if he keeps it up, he'll cross over long before it's his time.
Mm.
Look, I called Liliana, told her about her aunt. Her daughter got on the phone with me in Texas and said, How do you know it was my mom? How do you know that? I think you're full of crap. And I started to tell things that her mother told me to tell the daughter. And she said, Only my mother knows those things. Only family knows that. How do you know that? Did Liliana tell you? I said, No, your mother told me that. I said, If you want to ask another good question, ask me how I knew who the angel was. Because my ability to smell fragrances with angels is sometimes off the charts. So they call me a canary in a coal mine. What I smelled was this angel came in to talk to me. And I recognized immediately that it was not someone I ever smelled their fragrance before. And I said, You're new to me. I don't recognize your fragrance. And he said, Yeah, I'm about 2,000 of your Earth years old, and I'm not really doing this normally. I got another job, but the other angel was a little busy with what's going on, and they sent me here. So please take care of this person because we got to get out of here. So the moment I told Liliana's aunt that I would do that, the angel disappeared. Now, an older angel or spirit will always leave a reminiscent fragrance behind. A newer angel, in his case, he said he was 2,000 Earth years old, the fragrance vanished the moment he disappeared.
Mm.
All right, other things. You asked Rabbi about different things. People come to wake me up and tell me all sorts of things. One of the favorite things was there's going to be a disaster. Like what's going to happen this year in 2026 as we enter the ring of fire eclipse and the fire horse takes place. Where are there going to be disasters in the form of earthquakes? Well, first of all, I don't accept anybody's terminology of disasters, and anything that's negatively said to me is not usually coming from the creator or what we call God. Usually it's somebody pretending to be, and you're usually working for the dark side. Other people will come and they will share things either through dreams or what I have vivid open things that occur in front of me. And you name it, they've talked to me about all sorts of things. People come to me to share all sorts of things. It used to be just family members. Like because of this, I went and had my blood tested. And my mom's side of the family are Kohanim, the Kohan class. All right. And we found out genetically, my mom thought she was 100% Jewish. We're not. She thought she was so 100% being Jewish. She thought she was 100% Ashkenazic. She's not. It was 50-50 between Sephardic and Ashkenazic. Those are the two terms of Jews that come from either Europe, North Africa, or Persia. It depends on where they're coming from. So it turns out genetically, I have a cousin at Emory University who went through our entire family history. He teaches there in genealogy. And I'm related to Aaron and Moses of the Bible, grandpa and my uncle, 798 times removed. I'm also related to Jesus through that line of David. And I didn't have any clue because I knew that he called me the little Prince of Peace, but I didn't know as to why. Well, most near deathers meet Jesus And he usually calls them something like little brother, little sister. But in this particular case, it opened a door I never knew about. So my mother and father, when this stuff happens, my dad would say, "Hey, you see something, don't you?" "Yep, I can tell you what I see. I see what looks like a fish with no skin, no scales, just waving around in the house." And as it was waving around in the house, it hit my mom in the head. And I said it was an evil spirit, hit my mom in the head. I yanked it out of my mom's head. Headache went away. So it was be able to differentiate between good and evil and seeing the things around a person. You wouldn't believe. That's why I can't go into large groups of people in rooms because I see, hear, smell, and feel things around people. And the things you see, it's if people could only see the truth. For every human, there's at least two angels if you work for God and the good. If you work for the bad guys, there's only half an angel. Well, what does that mean? There has to be two bad guys in the room to get a whole angel. Now, that equates to actually about the same amount of angels because only 30% of the population on earth works for good and God. 70%, they're fair game for the evil or dark side. Of the 70%, 30% out of their way work for evil. And they
Wow.
go out of their way to do that. So evil wants to manipulate and control the best it can because it's got something it wants, your soul. It feeds off of it. Why? If they can make you commit suicide, harm one another, get you angry, or be afraid, they feed off of it. Like a vampire, only instead of blood, it's energy and emotions. If you can remain calm, they will starve to death and go somewhere else. You must realize why you're really here. Do more than endure, persevere, and overcome it, and master this reality. In my case, help people bring them to the fifth dimension, which is the closest thing we'll understand to heaven, unless you're in heaven. So it's a reality of which we'll experience, but I'd like to do it before we nuke ourselves and have a seventh destructive experience. I don't know about you. You want to go through a nuclear war? I don't. So, biggest thing is, I
Hmm.
have Muslims, my drivers who take me back and forth to the airport. Almost all of them are Muslims from Somalia, South, somewhere in Africa, in Jordan. They all ask me the same thing. Can I learn to love someone? I said, sure. He said, we're not taught, unless you're Sufi, we're not taught to love anybody. We're only taught to hate people. I said, would you like to learn? It's really easy to do. He said, I will, but I have to be very careful because people will think I'm converting. Now, a very interesting thing in this conversion. There was an Orthodox rabbi with 100,000 followers in Jerusalem recently. In the summer of last year, he had a near-death experience and met Big Brother. He came back and said, whoops, I think we made a mistake. At which point, 50% of his group went somewhere else. There was another man from Kuwait. He's a sheikh, Muslim. Said, I met Big Brother on the other side. I want to become a follower of him. And he said, I don't care if people kill me. I am going to follow with him to eternity. That was his thing. So people are seeing signs and changes of reality as we understand it. We're coming into this time where we change from where we are, sudden, unexpected, weird things happening that create these odd signs, as you said, and are actually telling us time to change, or we end up in the same old reality. Listen to those things. Nothing happens by coincidence.
Good.
Everything you see is for a reason. If you see a dragonfly, do you know what it means? An emotional issues coming up, usually coming
Right.
with family. If you see a hummingbird, do you know what that means? Joy is about to overtake you.
All right. I'm sorry, Dr. Scott, I see that Mary had her hand up.
I'm sorry. Hi, Mary.
Chance to
Apology.
ask a question.
I was wondering where it, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
I was wondering where you come down on reincarnation.
I don't come down on it. I know I've come back and forth hundreds of times. I've been on this world about 630 times on this world. Where do I come down? Remember, there was a lost book of the Bible, and they got rid of 22 versions of the New Testament. They kicked out 22 chapters during the time of Constantine, where they redo things. Your earthly body, Mary Christie, has one life to live, is Mary Christie. When
Hmm.
she goes home, she won't come back as Mary Christie. She can come back as a guy, a gal, and an it, whoever
Hmm.
knows. But when you come back, you'll have a little piece of who you were and then the other part of you. Here's the very interesting two cases. I'll use one. I had a little girl. She was 4 years old. She was my patient in Los Angeles. Her father was also my patient. He worked after the Shah collapsed in Iran. He worked at the embassy, and I took care of embassy employees. He came to me and said, Dr. Robinson, my daughter's talking about a whole bunch of things that make no sense. She's talking like she's an old woman, but she's only 4 years old. So she came in and she would tell me, oh, I'm not 4 years old. I'm dead and I'm buried in a small town in Iran. And I know who I am. And she started to go and elaborate. She's 4 years old. Her father was very worried because this is at the time when the Ayatollah was in power and you could be sent to retraining camps or even killed, put in prison. I told him, your daughter is remembering her old past life. If you want to have this stop, she needs to go back to this little town. So he did very quietly, even though his wife didn't want him to go back. He went back to this little town near Shiraz in Iran, and they were driving their little diplomatic built car, and the little girl points out the window and says, "There I am. I'm there. I'm there. Go down that street." So they go down that street, and there's a graveyard with a fresh grave that's only been a couple years old on the top of the mound of that grave site. And she says, "That's my son. That's my son." And she runs down out of the car, up the hill, grabs this guy by the leg and says, "You're my son." She's 4 years old. The guy's freaked out. So is this guy that's my patient. Because heaven forbid anybody should know about this, he's going to have his head chopped off. He bribes the guy to stay quiet. The little girl gets with him into the next plane they could get home, and they fly back to Los Angeles. On the flight, she falls asleep. Well, it's going to be a long flight anyway. She falls asleep, and when she wakes up the next day, the father said she didn't remember a thing about the story she told or anything she shared. She only remembered that she's a 4 year old little girl, and suddenly she started to become who she truly is in this reality. She said, Doc, it cleared up everything. She's a different little girl. She's a typical little girl living in the United States, even though she's Persian, and she moved on with her life.
Wow.
The other story was a little boy, 3 years old, who, when I came down, ran upstairs, put on his clothes because he was running around with just his diaper, and he put a tie on, for the tie was as big as him. And he was talking like an 80-year-old man from the Brooklyn about what he was doing and how this thing and how could this be. And his mother's like, this can't be. This is not possible. Today, when I spoke to him, he's a 16-year-old kid. He said, I don't have any recollection of that whatsoever. Because after he talked to me about who he was, that next time they flew to Canada, they were out of Toronto, he didn't have any memory of it whatsoever. He had met
Yeah.
me several times and it just disappeared. Your memories will be with you for only a short period of time when you come back in. Now, the other thing you need to know is we come from the Sea of Soul and we return to the Sea of Soul. What's the Sea of Souls? It is like the silver, shiny substance that looks like liquid or water. It's very flexible. When we return and we're told we're debriefed, we go back into the sea of soul and we become one with the part of all that is. This is how they taught me to explain it. Think of yourself as a dropper bottle, right? And a glass of water. And that dropper is filled with 100% cayenne pepper. And they put a couple drops in the glass. And now you come into a life and they add water and you stirred it around. And now this dilution is very, very minor. You'll have a little bit of the spicy, but now through time, over the experiences you've had, other little dropper bottles get dropped in your water. And now you're a compilation of the little minute amount of who you used to be mixed with a lot of new things that you become along the way in your path called life. Then, when they take you out, when you cross over, they take out this delusion, that's your soul, and they put you back into the sea of souls, where you share those memories of experiences with everyone else. Then, when they come and take you back out again, are you truly that person ever again? No, you're a delusion of a bunch of stuff, old and new. A little bit of the old, a lot of the new. Now, are you really that other person? Who knows? Who cares? Does it matter? We get caught up in you got to have a near-death experience, or you don't. You lived before, or you don't. What if you're just living someone else's memories? So the real question is not do you believe in your death experience, life after life, reincarnation. What do you feel and what do you believe? Because Rabbi Stephen Carroll may believe one thing, you, Mary Christie, may be believing something else. Can the both of your realities coexist in this dimension? Absolutely. How is that possible? Because you have freedom of free will without constraint to experience whatever you so choose. So if you don't like what I'm talking about, deny it. Don't accept it. Let it go. Throw it in the garbage can. Take what only you want to use and it works for you and make it yours because that's the freedom of free will. Hopefully, this long dichotomous answer could give you an example of what I was talking about. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Mary. That was a great question. All right, we are after the time, so I want to give everyone a chance before they start their next class to have
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. It was nice to meet everybody. You're welcome to join me on Sundays. Just email me, healer2beshore@gmail.com. Oh, can I give him my phone number, Reverend Catherine?
Absolutely.
Area code 760-917-2625. 760, that's actually a California area code, 917-2625. And if you have any questions, text me or call me.
That's so nice of you. Thank you so much, Dr. Scott. This was wonderful. We all loved hearing your story and your wisdom and everything that you share with us today was just wonderful to start off our new semester with OLLI. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Namaste.
It was
Namaste. It's been a
wonderful.
pleasure.
Thank
See
you.
you hopefully before it's time to go home.
Yeah. And when we go home, we'll be having a big party that we all got together.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. All right.
God
Have a
bless
good day,
everybody.
Thank you.
Any
Thank you again.
blessings.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.